King. So, our podcast will be live on all major platforms here in a couple of weeks. So, on this conversation, we like to have those taboo topics. We like to talk about those things that are in the news, things that just don't get the attention that they should. Anything's controversial, we're willing to have a conversation about it. And these are the conversations that we typically have, and you probably are having at your own kitchen or in the barbershop or in the salon. We want to bring those conversations to the forefront. So today, we have a very interesting conversation.
We sure do. Don't pay me no mind over here. I'm trying to run both social media outlets at one time. So, welcome to Kitchen Conversations. Welcome to the show, guys.
So, where did we start today's conversation? This y'all gonna want to stay tuned for this one. And the reason why we went through all of these challenges with Zoom is because what I'm gonna say is going to be so controversial that I wanted to be able to pull the receipts in real time. So I didn't want folks to say that, oh man, Kurt's telling us lies. I don't believe it. So we went through great lengths to work with this online collaboration platform with Facebook to make sure we were going to actually be able to substantiate everything we're getting ready to say.
Absolutely. And guess what? Some of these things need to be discussed. As a Black couple in America, we have these conversations all the time. And I know other people are having these conversations as well. We're always trying to gain knowledge and get understanding of everything that's going on. Hey, everyone on Instagram, how are you? And there's some things that just kind of need to be explained. And all the movements that are going on right now.
Right.
We just want understanding of like what movements we want to support, what movements we want to actively be involved with, understanding the basis of some of these movements that are happening right now, and figuring out where we fit as Black people. I think is something that is vital and of importance. So let's get into it.
Y'all want to get into it? I know they're like, what are these two getting ready to talk about today? Well, our topic is going to be on Black Lives Matter. What is Black Lives Matter? Is what we're being told about Black Lives Matter the same as what's really happening? Now, I'm going to bring up a name that I know sparks controversy. I was watching a video, and thank you guys, by the way, for all the videos you send me. I was watching a video by Candace Owens. Now, you all know that Candace Owens is a Black conservative. She is a lightning rod for controversy. But she was in a press conference video. I'm not certain the context. And she made some statements about the organization that I found quite interesting. Mm-hmm. So I'm not one of those people who just run with a narrative because I heard it. As you guys know, I am in a doctoral program at, I won't call the name of the school because some of the things I may say today. But I'm in a doctoral program in a pretty prestigious school. And I heard the narrative that she said. And of course, if you know anything about doctoral programs, it's all about research. So I have become a researcher out of scholarship. So when folks issue a narrative, I'm not one to just take it because it was said on my favorite news station. Mm-hmm. I normally go and I research. So she made some statements, and I found those statements to be very interesting, but I didn't have enough information when I initially heard them to have an opinion yet. I think far too often we formulate opinions with no information just because of us personality we like said it, and we start echoing that sentiment with no research of our own other than trust the media outlet or the name or the person who espoused that information. Mm-hmm. So she started talking about Black Lives Matter, and she called it, I'm not even gonna tell you what she called it. What we're gonna go to the website, and I'm doing this way because I'm going to make some statements, and I want to, everything I say, I'm going to back up today. And I'm going to show you tangible proof via this video of what I'm saying. At the end of the conversation, Keena and I have already come to our conclusion. But at the end of the conversation, you too will come to your own conclusion, and I'm going to state my case with actionable proof. So are y'all ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So I'm going to share my screen. And we all know that Black Lives Matter is really what's leading this charge right now. Let me share my screen. Let me go here. We're going to go right to the Black Lives Matter website. So, some things that I found on this website were very interesting. But before I give you my decisions and what I think about it, let's read, like in church. Read. So, where do we want to start? Because I was actually all inside and outside of this website for a while. So, Black Lives Matter was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal. I'm just reading. So that I am on the Black Lives Matter website, and I am on the About page. So hashtag Black Lives Matter was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murder. Black Lives Matter Foundation Inc. Remember that name, because we're gonna look some things up. Black Lives Matter Foundation Inc. is a global organization in the US, UK, and Canada whose mission is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. By combining and countering acts of violence, creating space for Black imagination and innovation, all this stuff sounds good, and centering Black joy, we are winning immediate improvements in our lives. All right, let's keep reading. We are expansive. Now I'm just reading from their website. We are a collective of liberators who believe in an inclusive, watch that word, y'all, inclusive, an inclusive and spacious movement. We also believe that in order to win and bring as many people with us along the way, we must move beyond narrow nationalism that is all too prevalent in Black communities. We must ensure we are building a movement that brings all of us to the front. All right, get ready. He says, we affirm the lives of Black, queer, and trans folks, disabled folks, undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all Black lives along the gender spectrum. Our network centers those who have been marginalized within Black liberation movements. We are working for a world where Black lives are no longer systemically targeted for demise. We affirm our humanity, our contributions to our society, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. We call for Black lives to matter as a rallying cry for all Black lives striving for liberation. These sound great, but it looks like, so what we believe, and I'm gonna start skipping down to the parts that I found interesting. Where are we at? Here's an interesting statement from me. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. We foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tightrope of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all the world is heterosexual unless she, he, or they disclose otherwise. We cultivate an intergenerational and communal network free from ageism. We believe that all people, regardless of age, show up with the capacity to lead. We embody and practice justice, liberation, and peace in engagements with one another. There's some things in here that I found interesting.
Very.
And as I read through this, and I just read a little bit of it, I encourage you to take some time in your own busy schedule and look at what is being espoused on his website. After some serious digging, I discovered two narratives in this document. I discovered that Black Lives Matter was an outgrowth, and I got some websites I'm gonna give you guys where everything I'm saying I'm gonna be able to document, improve, and substantiate. And if we run out of time, I will put the links in the show notes. But there were some things in here that really got my attention, because what I started discovering when I read Black Lives Matter was that, and before I even say what I'm getting ready to say, number one, Kena and I do not discriminate on anyone regardless of their sexual orientation, their religion, their gender, their color, any of that.
None
We
of it.
believe that in this country, we have the right to freedom of expression as espoused in our Constitution.
And we simply walk in love, period, because
Right.
that is the way of, a true believer of the kingdom of
And
God.
if we literally look at Jesus,
Mhm.
which is who we all that espouse to be Christian or spiritual, or whatever, however you define your religious walk, we define ourselves as believers of Christ. And we try to, we are not religious people. We have relationship.
Right.
And when I read my Bible, I see where Jesus was hanging out with those that were considered the inferior of society in that day.
Mhm.
He was at the table with the wine bibbers, and at those in whom society dictated he should not hang out with. So I want to throw that disclaimer out there. But one of the things that I want to bring up in this website is that I'm seeing a conflicted agenda. And the conflicted agenda I'm seeing is really a LGBTQI movement, which is being, and one of their subfights is Black Lives Matter. But with a lot of digging, and I can point you to the websites, I went and I looked at these statements of the co-founders, which we're going to talk about in great detail. And some of this is going to make sense. Some of you are like, well, I didn't see anything in the website that I disagreed with. Okay, that's fine. So, there's a lot of things talking about, and I gave you the website. Go look at the website. It's going to be a lot about transgender, trans, and this movement was really an outgrowth of Black Transgender Lives Matter,
Right.
Black LGBTQI Lives Matter. But because of everything that's happened in the media, it's became Black Lives Matter. But I need you guys to understand that if you want to support this cause, please do. But recognize what you're really funding. And this group of people and all of the women, so let's go back to the website. All of the women on this website openly espouse our co-founders, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, that these people are not really the co-founders of this organization. And I'm going to show you the corporate documents. But the co-founders all espouse to being homosexual women, which again, we're not judging. That people are free to believe and practice their lives however they see fit. And I respect that right. So, but these women who they've listed as the co-founders are actually not the founders of Black Lives Matter at all. Instead,
they are the face.
They are the face, and they are the founders of the hashtag. So let's dig a little further. So I know that what I said was a little out there. Black Lives Matter is really pushing the LGBTQ agenda for Black people, was really the thing. And I got a video I can point you to where one of these co-founders, Miss Patrice Khan Colors, says this on an MSNBC press release. I got to finish making my argument. So the next argument that I want to make is that Black Lives Matter, these women who on our website is listed as the co-founders, Miss Patrice Khan Collars, Miss Alicia Garza, and Miss Opal Tometi. I hope I didn't say her name wrong. These are not the founders of the organization. Opal. Thank you. Now you can go and read their bios. For the sake of time, I'm just going to move so you can go do your own investigative research later. So let's talk about the true ownership of Black Lives Matter. Now, remember, I made a statement that said these three women, which on the Black Lives Matter website, is co-founders. But when I went to, and I already put this in, I kind of got this queued up. I am on, which by the way, if we go back to the website, normally on the About page, you'll normally find corporate headquarters and stuff like that. None of the information was found. And so that immediately gave me pause. And I started wondering, why are they not putting information for how to donate and give and all of this other stuff? So that gave me a question. So I started looking. Again, this started from listening to some stuff from Candace Owens and others. Not she wasn't on the wire. You heard some hip hop guys talking about they didn't support the organization, and I started wondering why. What do they know that I don't know? So when I went to remember the on this website, they gave us the name of the company. So again, I want to make sure I substantiate everything I'm getting ready to say. And they told you that the name of the organization was Black Lives Matters Foundation Inc. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do it, but y'all saw. So here we go. Black Lives Matter Foundation. It was incorporated on 5/22/2015. Now, in the California jurisdiction, and the agent for service or process was Robert Ray Barnes, which I didn't have a problem with. Okay, he might be the registered agent. The registered agent is nothing more than a person who, if informal communications want to come to a company, the registered agent is normally who they contact to deliver that message. Mm-hmm. No problems there. So I click on Black Line. Now, this is the Secretary of State for California. So all companies, as y'all know, are registered in the database, and they're organized in the state of California. It may be other places as well, but this is where the company's headquartered, and you'll see why. So, jurisdiction California is a domestic nonprofit, all good. Agent of service, that's the registered agency. No problems here. It gave some addresses. So when I looked into the registration document of this Black Lives Matter Foundation Inc., which is also the name on their website, and it's coming up. I'm doing this in real time. And it goes in, and I'm not going to read off before you, but it basically says the name of the corporation is Black Lives Matter Foundation. The corporation is a nonprofit public benefit, so it's a B corporation, which means it's an impact organization. It goes on and lists the state of California being the incorporation and service processing, all that good stuff. But it got down here, and like I said, you guys can read this in your spare time, and it said signature of incorporator. That's that same name we seen, Mr. Ray Barnes. So now I'm intrigued. So if that wasn't enough, all right, I said, okay, I'm interested. What's going on here? So August 19, 2016, certificate of amendment of articles of incorporation of Black Lives Matter Foundation. This is the same website we showed. Mm-hmm. The name of the corporation, they are the president and secretary, respectively, of Black Lives Matter Foundation, a California corporation. The name of the corporation is Black Lives Matter Foundation. Article 1 of the Article of Incorporation is amended to read as follows. The name of the corporation is the Community Unity Foundation. So hold up. You got Black Lives Matter Foundation, and now here you're saying, basically, we renaming the company to the Community Unity Foundation. What is going on here? The foregoing amendments of articles of incorporation have been duly approved by the board of directors. Now, for a second, y'all, we went back to this. Let's go back to who they said their founders were. Patrice Kahn Collars, Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi. But then I go here, and it's telling me this is basically my president, Ray Barnes, and my secretary, E.E. Presley. Hold up. Why is the website and what the state has filed? Now, these are public documents filed with the state. Why are they different? Okay, but the plot, it gets better. Mm-hmm. So that was August 19, 2016. Let's go to May 22nd, 2017. So now remember, the previous document talked about the amendment of the articles, and it talked about the rename. Mm-hmm. So they are the president, secretary, respectively, of the Community Unity Foundation, still a California corporation. The name of the corporation is the Community Unity Foundation. Article 1 of the Articles of Incorporation of this corporation is amended to read as follows. The name of the corporation is Black Lives Matter Foundation. Hold up. So not only did the co-founders on the website not match these state documents that you can go look up in your own spare time, but also you changed the name of the company from Black Lives Matter Foundation, Inc., which is also on their website, to the Community Unity Foundation.
But still using the name.
But still using the name Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
So see, at this point, I was starting to understand what I was hearing on the news.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to tell you, okay, here we go. State of South Carolina. I want to make sure I blew it all out here. State of South Carolina, Jesus. State of California, Secretary of State. It gives in the principal address for the headquarters. And then it says Chief Executive Officer, Robert Ray Barnes. And none of these names aren't the names that was on
The website.
the Black Lives Matter website.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary, Edward Presley, home address. Well, no, it's the whatever address they got, not a home address. Gregory Moore. So we got 3 people on the website, and we got 3 names in this corporate document, but these names are not matching. And I'm gonna take a leap and say that these names don't even look like the same individual nor the same sex of the people that's on the Black Lives Matter website. So this is your CEO, this is your secretary, and this is the CFO for Black Lives Matter. So why are they showing us different faces?
These ladies as co-founders,
Co-founders,
but not ever mentioning.
Not ever mentioning the doc. So if you're a co-founder, one of these names should have showed up in the state artifacts. But let's.
Well, it's funny you say that because I couldn't even find these people on social media.
Oh yeah, I ain't even get there yet. Then when I went to go look these gentlemen up, and I'll save y'all a search, but you can check me just for your own sanity if you don't believe me. When I went to go try to find these individuals, there was no record of them anywhere on the internet. So then I said, okay, what are you trying to hide? Mm-hmm. Now, here's another document. This one was filed June 2019. Still Black Lives Matter Foundation. Mm-hmm. Address. And then notice that all these addresses changed. And then when I went and looked at the records, some of these houses are up for sale. Go look at Zillow. Don't believe me. Go look them up. So I started asking, hold up, what are these people really trying to hide from us? Mm-hmm. What's really going on? Because this is what you showed the world. Mm-hmm. But this is what's other screen. This is what's really happening. What's the disconnect? So I was hearing celebrities and the like, and all this stuff is publicly available. Go to South Carolina, Jesus. Go to the Secretary of State for California and go to their Secretary of State's office, do a business search, put the name in, it's going to come up. So I didn't fake these documents. You can go look them up in your own spare time when your schedule permits. So number one, we noticed that the founders and who actually are on the incorporation paperwork for this organization, they don't match. That's interesting in and of itself. Now, Keena, as I go and get ready to pull up kind of the next thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to stop share for a second because I'm going to show you who really is funding this organization. And I was hearing some stuff in the media, and I had heard this when this organization first got started, but with everything that's kind of going on,
boy, Curtis, boy, you opening up a can of worms.
But so, a lot of people is putting money in these organizations.
Where the money going?
I want to know where the money's going.
Where's the money going? Where's the money supporting? Like, who's the money supporting? And my thing is this: if you started this organization and it was for Black people that are LGBTQI,
right?
I don't have an issue with that.
No issue.
Let it be that.
Let it be that.
But for you to put this kind of like a smoke screen on it,
right?
And you present this as Black Lives Matter, right, because of all the things that have been happening. So it's like, you know what, this should also be included, but we're gonna lead with this because more people don't have an issue with this, especially right, Black people.
And while you pulling that up, I'm up so because we might not have time to get into today, but I want to show y'all the video with quote unquote one of the founders in quotes who basically is saying that. So we might not have time to get to it today, but it's on here. This is the video. Queerness on the Front Live.
This our podcast. We can go as long as we want to.
Lives Matter.
What you saying, Kurt?
And so in here, the co-founder, one of the ladies on the website, now one of the face said, these are her words. And you see it's an MSNBC original. This is not something Kurt just made up. She talked about Should I play the video?
Play the video.
All right, I'm gonna play the video. 2 more minutes left, but when we make discussion points, we try not to just offer up conjecture. But so the other important thing is, now that you kind of got a better understanding of where Black Lives Matter came from, we want to talk about one of the funders of Black Lives Matter, and this is really what concerns me more than the mission. What really funds me is who's supporting them and other organizations. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the Open Society. Open Society was a doctrine that was espoused by a well-known academic, 1947-ish, don't quote me on the exact date, named Karl Popper. So it came out of the academic circles, and it talked about creating an open society. But the person who funds the Open Society, which I'm going to show you another video, this guy, and you've heard this name in the news, but you may not have known what he stood for or his story. So I got a 2 or 3, 4 minute video I'm going to show you. A guy named George Soros. So this is why him funding any organization is concerning to me. So I'm going to cue that video up real quick. Share. Kind of got an idea.
So wait a minute. Let me recap this.
Okay, stop the share.
So George Soros is one of the founders. He funds, not founders, but he funds Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, he has. And okay. I'm gonna show it. So
okay, hold on. Okay. Let's not move too fast.
Okay, let me stop share.
Okay, right, no. Let's not move too fast. Okay. And he was a Jewish man.
Yes.
Who took on being a Christian to escape what was happening by his godfather.
Supposed godfather.
Okay, supposed godfather who vouched for him.
Correct.
And he aided in the taking of the properties and watching these Jews be killed.
Well, and I'm going to quote George Soros. He says, "I didn't aid, I was just there."
He didn't aid, he was just there.
Yes. But he said in another video, because there's tons, this was an NPR piece. He went on further to say, and you can, all this is documented. I showed y'all that video where he admitted to, yes, I did this. He went on to say that it was what formed his character. Selling out folks who look like him. He said I said that part, not his people, but he said the experience was a character building experience for him and changed his life. So for you all who all don't know, okay, George Soros wrote a book called The Alchemy of Finance. George Soros has been accused of overthrowing whole economies. That's how much money he has, that you can bankrupt an economy because you're betting against them through financial instruments. We won't turn this into an investment class, but you're shorting economies. You're betting that they're going to fall, and they do fall. And one of them he's notable for, and I think it was the UK. He bet against the pound. He made $1 billion off the transaction. So many would say, "Oh, he's just doing his job. He's a currency speculator." But he's taking pride and reveling in destroying economies to put together his own version of a utopian society. Now,
okay,
not to turn this into a religious class, but if you read, and don't quote me on it, all my religious scholars out there, all my Bible scholars, I think in Revelations 21 and 22, it talks about this utopian society that will happen before tribulation. So something to think about. I'm not going to dig too far into that. But he wants to create a utopian society, and he espouses to not believe in God. So not saying that everyone's going to believe the way we believe, but where's the moral code when you're not believing in something? Whatever your something is, if it's God, if it's Allah, if it's, if you're Hindu and you believe of several different entities. I'm not here to have a religious conversation.
Well, some people believe in Satanism.
Some people believe in Satanists, but still there's something that has to be guiding the
agenda.
The agenda. So just food for thought. But let's go and see what this. So y'all, And okay, so I didn't finish. So George Soros really rose to power because he started this thing called the Quantum Fund. And the Quantum Fund was one of many hedge funds that George Soros started. Him and another billionaire that you may know, especially the folks in the finance realm, is Jim Rogers. So Jim Rogers was a protege to Soros. As you know, he's a billionaire. He's also a commodity guy, currency guy, commodity guy. He now lives in Southeast Asia. He moved to China, if I'm not mistaken. Written a lot of books as well. Both of these guys are incredible guys. You will not find him have a whole bunch of conversations publicly about George Soros. So that's another thing that gives me pause. So let's talk about, like so you guys can go on your own time, kind of look up more about who George Soros is. George Soros is a big funder of the Democratic Party. So you oftentimes see people like Hillary Rodham Clinton and Bill Clinton when they were running for office. George Soros puts a lot of money into that campaign. Just FYI. Let's go a little further.
Don't get me
This is
started.
all documented. I'm not telling you anything you can't go look up. You can look up political donations. George Soros, Media Matters, and a bunch of other companies he owns. He's a very rich Jew, European Jew. Let's clarify. And so let's go to the Open Society Foundation. On the right share. So the Open Society Foundation, founded by George Soros. I just got your quick 2-minute or 5-minute history lesson on who he is. I would encourage you to do more digging. The world's largest private funder of independent groups working for justice, democratic governance, and human rights. George Soros opened his first international foundation in Hungary in 1984. Today, the Open Society Foundation supports a vast array of projects in more than 120 countries, providing thousands of grants every year through a network of national and regional foundations and offices. And it goes and talks about all the great work he's done, financials, the leadership, son Alexander Soros. See this? Here are some of the leadership on his executive team. Just looks like a standard, regular organization. But let's think about what an open society is. Put on your academic or geopolitical cap for a second.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe the book of Revelations, and some of you read it, some of you haven't, it talked about a one world government. This is why I'm having this conversation. So whether you believe that narrative or not, I think we all can believe that we are becoming more and more of a borderless society. We're becoming more global. You can get from here to the other side of the world with an email click or a phone call. I think we all can agree to that. And if you believe anything about apocalyptic times or revelations or whatever you want to call it, it talks about how you can have basically one nation under this dictatorship. Mm-hmm. We all know about the European Union. Some of my folks who study Council on Foreign Relations and some of these other organizations have been aware that there has been a play to try to move to create other unions. Now, y'all know that England just left the European Union. They called it Brexit, all in the news. But a few years ago, there was a big push to create more unions. Like it was going to be the American Union, which was all this is documented. So it was going to be the American Union was the plan to create a forge between North America and South America. You got the European Union already. This was before England left, and it was all on the news about Brexit, and we can talk another day about why they left and all this other good stuff. But there was supposed to be a series of unions. Mm-hmm. The United Nations, in this grand architectural scheme, is supposed to be, let's call it, for lack of a better term, the organizing organization, United Nations. What does that mean? United Nations. So it kind of goes back to the narrative I talked about. We had these different unions. The union were a collective of nations, especially if you start looking at what was happening over in Europe. So the World Health Organization, the health organization for the nations, the International Monetary Fund, international. So you're starting to see this push toward a global agenda.
One world government.
One world government. None of that stuff happens overnight. It is a crawl, walk, run. And folks have been working on this for a long time. In your spare time, look up the Bilderberger Group, look up the Trilateral Commission, look up the Council on Foreign Relations. look up these different organizations and start looking and seeing what their agendas are. Look at the Ford Foundation and the Heritage Foundation. Look up the Aspen Institute and look at these think tanks. These are smart people coming together to create this quote unquote utopian society. But let's go on. So here's the Open Society Foundation's website. You can go, you can spend tons of time in here. You can get lost. But here's something that's important. The 2020 budget for this organization looks at equality and anti-discrimination, and they're spending $111.5 million. These sound like noble causes, but it start when I see who's at the helm of this organization. Everything that looks one way does not appear, just based on this gentleman's own personal testimony. This was not something I said. This was his own words, and you can go and read some of his documents and read some of his doctrine, and you'll be surprised at some of the things you discover. But let's go and see who he's funding. So, one of the things that came out was that Black Lives Matter had gotten 33 million, and please forgive me if my math is slightly off. It's not off by much. It was a statement that they received $33 million from this organization, head by George Soros. Now, we already saw, if you got on late, we already saw that the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, they're actually the co-founders of the hashtag and not co-founders of the organization.
Because that's what she said.
And the documents show that. We actually showed the state records showing the corporate organization history. But there was a statement that was made that said that Black Lives Matter, and I went to the awarded grants, and we see here, and it goes back to what we talked about. You can relate all this. The funder is the Foundation to Promote Open Society, and I don't know if it went from Open Society to Release Leads Limited, but I read this already. But if you go and look at bullet 3. Organize public live events featuring Black Lives Matter Movement UK, drug user activists, sex workers activists, and LGBTIQA plus advocates speaking on relevant topics to raise public awareness. So the fact that Black Lives Matter or the Community Unity Foundation, one and the same, we saw the public record documents that show that they were the same company. And we saw who the CEO, secretary, and CFO of the organization were. Why are they taking money from Black Lives Matter? But when they were asked this question, they said they had never taken money from George Soros. Now, I was unable to find the $33 million that was cited on a couple other news outlets. So this is what I did find, which was the $279,860 that was given in 2018. But the Open Society is a private organization, and so therefore they are not obligated to disclose their entire financial history and when they've given every dollar. Now, there's another form on this website where you can go and look and see who all they've given money to. But this is just to go against the narrative. When Black Lives Matter say they haven't taken money from George Soros, Open Society is definitely funded by George Soros, who I think giving away something like $32 billion. You can go look at the math. My math may be slightly off, but I'm not far off. And he's still one of the richest men in society. So my question is, why is he funding this? And why did the real owners of Black Lives Matter go through so much trouble
to hide the CEO,
CFO, right, the true identity of the company? So it's starting to feel like the movement in which we are all rallying around, because it sounded very viable on paper. I'm starting to wonder what the real agenda of the organization is, and more importantly, how is Black Lives Matter being used in part of the bigger, grander scheme?
Right. I just would like to know, like, what has been done in the Black communities in terms of the things that they're saying that they are helping with. Like, I know they have like a bunch of chapters in different states, but first of all, it's a bad look right now with all the protests. It's being made out to be that the Black Matters movement is causing all the violence
Right.
and da 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 da. It's kind of looking bad.
Right.
But then on the back end of it, what are they doing for the communities? Like, what are they doing in terms of helping with legislation and change?
Let me say this, and we got a question too that I want to make sure I address. I see it in here.
Okay.
I will say this. So I don't know if you guys saw the news yesterday. Yesterday was what, June 8th. So yesterday, June 8th, the Congressional Black Caucus put together a bill to the House.